The smell of barbecue smoke couldn't mask the tension crackling through my parents' backyard as extended family gathered for our annual reunion. I stood by the grill, flipping burgers while my brother Marcus held court near the pool, regaling cousins with stories of his latest business venture. A cryptocurrency trading scheme that had already cost him 2 jobs this year. "Sarah, honey, come here," Mom called, her voice carrying that particular tone that meant trouble was brewing. I set down my spatula and walked over to where she and Dad stood with Marcus, his wife Jennifer, and their 2 young kids. "We've made a decision about the future," Dad announced, puffing out his chest importantly. The extended family quieted, sensing drama. "About inheritance planning." My stomach dropped. At 28, I'd worked 60-hour weeks as a software security consultant for the past 6 years, quietly building my career while living in the modest 3-bedroom house I'd purchased in the suburbs. Meanwhile, Marcus bounced between get-rich-quick schemes, constantly borrowing money from our parents to fund his latest sure thing. "Marcus and Jennifer need stability for the grandchildren," Mom continued, gesturing toward their kids splashing in the pool. "They need a real home, not another rental." Marcus smirked. "Sorry sis, but families with kids take priority. You understand, right? You're just one person." Jennifer nodded sagely. "We've been looking at houses in this neighborhood anyway. It'll be perfect. The kids already know the area from visiting Grandma and Grandpa. This house will be your brother's inheritance," Mom declared loudly, ensuring every aunt, uncle, and cousin heard clearly. Dad reached into his pocket and pulled out a set of keys. My spare house keys that I'd given them for emergencies. "We figured Marcus should have these now, start getting familiar with the property. Maybe help with maintenance." The family murmured approvingly. Aunt Linda cooed about how wonderful it was to see parents thinking ahead. Uncle Bob clapped Marcus on the shoulder, congratulating him on his good fortune. I felt 30 pairs of eyes on me waiting for my reaction. Marcus's smug expression made my fingers itch to grab those keys back. But I'd learned long ago that making scenes at family gatherings only painted me as the difficult daughter. Instead, I pulled out my phone and sent a quick text to my mortgage company's customer service line. "Need verification of homeownership documentation. Urgent family matter." "That's very thoughtful of you both," I said calmly, my voice steady despite my racing heartbeat. "I'm sure this will all work out exactly as it should." Marcus pocketed the keys with a triumphant grin. "Don't worry, Sarah. You can visit anytime. Maybe rent the basement apartment we're planning to add." The family laughed. I smiled and excused myself to check on the burgers, my phone already buzzing with a response from the mortgage company. Over the next 3 weeks, Marcus and Jennifer treated my house like they already owned it. They showed up unannounced to measure for furniture, and brought contractors to quote renovation projects I hadn't authorized. Jennifer posted photos on social media of our new home's potential, complete with paint swatches and furniture catalogs. "The living room needs to be completely redone," she announced during one uninvited visit, standing in my doorway with fabric samples. "This beige is so boring. We're thinking bold colors. Maybe emerald green accent walls." Marcus wandered through my home office, eyeing my dual monitor setup and expensive ergonomic chair. "This could be converted to a playroom. Kids need space more than you need a home office. You can work from Starbucks or something." I continued my routine, working my demanding consulting contracts, maintaining my security clearances, and managing my investment portfolio while they made plans for my property. My parents called regularly with updates on Marcus's transition timeline. "He's given notice on his rental," Mom informed me during one of these calls. "They'll be moving in next month. You'll need to find somewhere else by then. Maybe that nice studio apartment complex downtown." "We're not trying to rush you, sweetheart," Dad added, "but the kids' school enrollment deadline is coming up. They need a stable address." At work, my colleagues noticed my distraction. My team leader, Dr. Rebecca Chin, pulled me aside after a particularly challenging client presentation. "Sarah, you've been off your game lately. Everything okay at home?" Dr. Chin had become something of a mentor during my years at the cybersecurity firm. She'd guided my career development and knew about my family's tendency to undervalue my achievements. Unlike my parents who saw my work as playing on computers, Dr. Chin understood the complexities of protecting Fortune 500 companies from digital threats. "Family issues," I admitted. "They're trying to give my house to my brother." Her eyebrows shot up. "Give your house? The one you own. They seem to think they have that authority. Dr. Chin shook her head. Sarah, you've been managing cybersecurity for 3 major banks and 2 government contracts. You make more in a month than most people see in 6. Why are you letting them treat you like this? That afternoon I received another text from Marcus. Truck rental booked for moving day. Thanks for being cool about this, sis. I forwarded the message to my attorney, someone I'd retained when my consulting income hit 6 figures and I needed help with contract negotiations. Sarah Williams Eskew had handled my house purchase and knew exactly what legal protections I had in place. Her response was immediate. This is harassment. Document everything. We may need to involve law enforcement. Meanwhile, Jennifer had started a group chat with our female cousins, sharing her home makeover journey. Screenshots flooded my phone showing discussions about inheriting Sarah's place, and how they planned to finally make it a real family home. The most galling part was my parents' assumption that I'd simply comply. They'd arranged a family meeting for Saturday to finalize the transition details, and expected me to hand over my deed and mortgage paperwork like a dutiful daughter accepting her fate. I spent that week gathering documentation. Bank statements, mortgage records, property tax receipts, insurance policies, everything proving my sole ownership of the house they were so casually redistributing. My mortgage company's legal department prepared an official ownership verification letter, complete with notarized seals and corporate letterhead. Dr. Chin, intrigued by the situation, had offered to attend the family meeting as a character witness. Sometimes people need to hear from an external authority before they believe what's right in front of them, she'd said. Saturday morning arrived with Marcus's moving truck parked in my driveway and my entire extended family assembled in my living room, ready to witness what they assumed would be my graceful surrender of my own home. The family meeting convened in my living room with the solemnity of a court proceeding. Marcus sat at the head of my dining table like he was already the homeowner, while Jennifer bustled around arranging papers and talking loudly about ownership transfer logistics. This is really exciting, Aunt Linda gushed. It's so generous of Sarah to give up her house for the family. Well, Dad said pompously, we raised her to understand that family comes first. Single people don't need big houses anyway. Mom nodded sagely. Marcus has been working so hard on his business ventures. He deserves this stability. I remained quiet in my own kitchen, watching Dr. Chin examine my mortgage documents with professional interest. As the head of cybersecurity for Henderson Financial Group, she'd seen plenty of fraud cases and knew what legitimate property ownership looked like. All right, Sarah, Marcus called out. Let's get this paperwork signed. I've got movers coming this afternoon. Before we proceed, Dr. Chin said, stepping into the living room with crisp authority, I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about property ownership laws. The room fell silent. My family hadn't expected a witness, especially not someone in an expensive business suit carrying official-looking documents. I'm Dr. Rebecca Chin, Director of Cybersecurity at Henderson Financial Group, she announced, her corporate voice cutting through the casual family chatter. I've worked with Sarah for years on high-level security contracts. She asked me to review these documents because something seemed legally questionable. She placed a thick folder on the table. This is an official ownership verification from First National Mortgage Company, along with property tax records, insurance documentation and legal title information. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Look, lady, this is a family matter. Property law isn't a family matter, Dr. Chin interrupted smoothly. It's a legal matter. And according to these documents, Sarah Chin has been the sole legal owner of this property for 3 years. She holds the deed, pays the mortgage, covers all property taxes and maintains sole insurance responsibility. Jennifer's face went pale. But the parents said. Parents can't legally transfer property they don't own, Dr. Chin explained, opening the mortgage company's verification letter. This document, bearing First National's corporate seal and legal department signature, confirms that any attempted transfer of this property without Ms. Chen's explicit consent would constitute mortgage fraud, a federal crime. The room erupted. Uncle Bob demanded to know why I hadn't explained the situation properly. Aunt Linda accused me of tricking the family. Marcus jumped up, red-faced and shouting about being set up. Furthermore, Dr. Chin continued over the chaos, I've documented several instances of unlawful entry, harassment, and attempted conversion of private property. The photos Jennifer posted on social media claiming ownership of property she doesn't legally possess could be considered fraud. Mom sank into my couch, her face crumpling. But we told everyone. Marcus gave notice on his rental. Dr. Chen's expression remained professionally neutral. That's not Miss Chen's legal responsibility. She owns this home through legitimate purchase with her own income. Income that, I should mention, significantly exceeds most family members' annual earnings due to her specialized cybersecurity expertise. Dad sputtered about family loyalty and ungrateful daughters. But Dr. Chen had more documentation ready. Ms. Chen's W-2 forms and consulting contracts show annual earnings that would qualify her for properties worth considerably more than this one, she continued. She chose this modest home because she values financial responsibility over flashy displays of wealth. The mortgage company's legal letter made everything crystal clear. I was the sole owner, any interference with my property rights constituted criminal behavior, and law enforcement had been notified of potential fraud attempts. Marcus grabbed the moving truck keys, his dreams of free housing evaporating in front of 30 witnesses who'd gathered to celebrate his inheritance. The family meeting dissolved into chaos as relatives fled my house, embarrassed by their role in the attempted property theft. Marcus and Jennifer loaded their belongings back onto the moving truck, frantically calling rental companies to find emergency housing. Without my parents' financial safety net, which they'd withdrawn assuming Marcus would have a free house, they ended up in a cramped apartment across town. Dr. Chen's involvement had immediate consequences beyond my house situation. Her documentation of the fraud attempt triggered an investigation into Marcus's other business dealings, revealing a pattern of financial misconduct that cost him his latest sales job. Jennifer's social media posts about inheriting property became evidence in a civil case that resulted in a restraining order preventing them from approaching my home. My parents faced the community shame of having publicly promised property they didn't own. Church friends and neighbors who'd witnessed their grand announcements now knew they'd either lied or were completely ignorant of basic property law. Dad's retirement planning crumbled when they realized they couldn't force me to subsidize Marcus's lifestyle anymore. The extended family who'd gathered to celebrate Marcus's good fortune now avoided family events, uncomfortable with their participation in an attempted fraud. Aunt Linda and Uncle Bob, who'd been the most vocal supporters of my dispossession, quietly stopped including me in family group chats rather than face their embarrassment. I changed my locks, updated my security system, and continued my successful consulting career with Dr. Chen's mentorship. My house remained mine, my mortgage payments stayed current, and my investment portfolio grew without the constant drain of supporting Marcus's failed ventures. The spare keys Dad had so ceremoniously handed over turned out to be worthless copies anyway. I'd had my locks rekeyed the day after buying the house, a security precaution that proved prescient. Sometimes competence and preparation are the best revenge against those who underestimate your capabilities.